Hi, good morning.
A,
How's it?
a silent add-on. Good morning and good afternoon.
Hey, how you doing?
Um, really good, thank you. Wonderful to have you here. We're 9 people, including me. It's a nice group. A lot of TEDx organizers, entrepreneurs, curious minds. Um, I'd like to pass the baton to you. Maybe I can just stop my sharing so you can take it from here.
Yeah, so I can share, I assume. Yeah. Second. Okay. Okay, so can you see my intro slide, my screen?
I can see it.
Yeah.
Oh,
yes.
Good. Then, yeah, let's get started. So today, yeah, thanks, Nikki, for inviting me to host a session today. So today I want to give you guys an introduction to business modeling. And just before, Nikki, you've shared with all the participants that one slide that I created.
Yes.
Everyone has that, because you guys, you will work with that in a bit. I just have one note from Yanis. What's that?
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. So
okay.
I'm going to take care of the chats.
Okay, perfect.
So you can stay in your flow, and if there's something relevant for your flow, I'm going to alert and let you know.
Yeah, just interrupt me. Perfect. Sounds good. Okay, cool. So yeah, let's do that. Just an intro about myself, really quick. My name is Toby, and I am originally from Munich in Germany, where I grew up, and also where I went to college studying aeronautics and aerospace. After that time, I kicked off my professional career with Airbus Group Innovations. So that was in the department of the future of flight, electric aviation, as you can see here in the picture, top left. I was also working at that time in an icing wind tunnel. So part of my work as an R&D engineer was designing systems and subsystems for electric aircraft, especially when it comes to icing and de-icing while being airborne. So all those systems that really help or like make the airplane safe while being in the, during or while being airborne, to de-ice and to shed off the ice from wings that might actually accrue on wings. And that was also as part of that. I was also looking into like material science, so doing studies about droplets dynamic and droplet behavior. How can you actually pretend water to freeze up on the surfaces, and then also, as you see in the picture bottom right, to kind of shed the ice off aircraft surfaces. And I was studying all that on a small scale in a laboratory icing wind tunnel. Part of my work was, of course, also like publishing patents on behalf of Airbus. So in total, I'm the inventor of about 10 patents, which are all in the field of electric aviation, future of flight, of course, connected to material science, but also to mechanical systems to finally remove the ice from aircraft surfaces. After that time, so I did do that as part of my R&D work as an R&D engineer, but also in parallel, I was doing my PhD in aeronautics. So after I got my PhD, I left Airbus, and at some point, I thought I need to pivot myself, and I moved to the US and joined the company Business Models Inc. And for that company, it's all about like strategy, innovation. For the company, I am leading the global practice for aviation, aeronautics, also transportation and mobility. So some of the most interesting projects that I'm working in and also was working with, it's in the future of flight in terms of urban air mobility, as you see also in the picture top left. So all about those flying taxis that you might heard of, but also it's of course connected. So like that new world in cities, like how will people actually commute in the air in urban areas? That also of course involves how can you actually redesign the airspace to also keep the airspaces safe when there's like a lot of traffic be it flying taxis, but also be it drones in the future, delivery drones, what you see with Amazon, and also Google with a company called Wing, all that happening. So also the new airspaces, they need to be designed and also be safe in the future, in the vicinity of airports. So how do actually all these new entrants in the airspace, be it flying taxis, be it delivery drones, how do these also act in the vicinity of airports? So I was also working on a project for the redesign of air traffic management, especially in urban areas. Then another project that I was working on, pretty interesting, it's in the realm of micromobility. So how will people commute on ground in cities in the future if they do not own cars anymore, but they're just like using cars? So all these different micromobility services, be like small electric kick scooters, maybe also like some small pod cars that just commute around and you just hop in, hop off, and you don't even drive yourself anymore. And last project that I want to mention in this regard, was a project that I was working with for the Volkswagen Group of Americas here in the US. So it's about these guys, they're designing quantum computing algorithms for actually minimizing commuting time. So how can people get in the least amount of time from A to B with route optimization, minimal waiting time, and all those data aggregation to really have the best possible options for people to commute from A to B. And Volkswagen, they do these looking into new forms of computing, high performance computing, such as quantum computing, and they're designing the algorithms for that. So just as an overview, like some of the organizations I worked with in the past and also still working with, of course, it's connected to my biggest field of interest and also to my background of aviation and aeronautics. So Airbus, Boeing, NASA here in the US, also the US Air Force, but then also, of course, some of the big auto brands as Volkswagen, Audi, but also I'm working with a lot of different educational institutes, as you see on that slide. So some business schools where I'm teaching at, and also I'm also the advisor for 2 startups, which is pretty interesting. So one startup, it's called Strime, which are based out of Vienna, and they're a startup in the media entertainment industry, and I am their chief strategy officer, looking into like the global partnerships, but also looking into like all those fundraising opportunities that we want to go through with that startup. So they created an interactive app that you can actually use smartphones only to do live broadcasting. So let's say you want to broadcast a sports match that you have at the weekend. So you can simply use your smartphone, and you can use up to 4 different smartphones and actually create your own broadcast and stream that right away live into social media. And another startup that I'm working with, it's Agati, which is a sustainable luxury fashion brand. And with that company, I help them also looking into global partnerships, but also ramping up their sales actually, and also creating all the strategy, all the future business models for that company. And the business modeling is especially interesting for startups, of course. They think always they have great technology, or they have that one solution that actually helps them and brings them a lot of turnover. But in the end, it's really about what is that business model now, and also how can you actually develop further that business model in the future, that you're actually ready to all those different changes that you also see now, of course, with COVID-19. So really have different versions of business models, different options in place, that you're actually ready and to even make the pivots and to adapt. Because in the end, it's all about what is it that the customer wants, what is it that the customer buys. So for that reason, helping these startups looking into their business models and really make sure that they create value propositions that the customers are willing to buy. So also part of my work, and it's really connected to the whole topic of customer centricity. It's about thinking and acting like a designer. So who of you guys, who knows that guy? Anyone? Okay.
Karl Lagerfeld.
Oh yeah. And what would you say? Is the similarity between Karl Lagerfeld and a business designer? When it comes to designing business, or maybe let me ask the other way around. How does a designer work?
Well, they understand trends and they bring something to the public that the public hasn't seen before, but has some familiarity with.
Yeah, and also definitely the trends. Also based on the trends. So what they do is they don't work like designing like one single right solution. What they do is they create different options, and they start early enough in the design process, coming up with option A, B, C, whatever, maybe like 10 different options, and then they go back discuss with their teams. At some point, they decide upon something. Then it's another round of iteration. So it's really not creating that very first solution and then bringing that into the market. It's an iterative design process, an iterative process of creating options and ultimately really bringing up those things that the customer wants, that the people are actually willing to buy. And this is that similarity with also business design from a fashion designer. So they do something. It's really about customer centricity and doing something, creating options, and also working iteratively. And this is actually pretty connected to design thinking. So design thinking, it's human-centered, and it's a collaborative approach to solve a problem in a creative, interactive, and practical way. And as I said before, customer centricity, it's key of design thinking. So everything in terms of human-centered. And for us as a company, design thinking, it actually integrates three key concepts or three notions. So of course, it's the customer desirability, but also is the product or the service that you're designing, is it actually viable? So is that a viable business? And then lastly, the third aspect, technical feasibility. So whatever you have in mind, it also must be technically feasible. So you must be able to produce that product, or if it's any like new service. So if you're not ready with the algorithms, well, then the product is worth nothing for the reason it must be technically feasible. And I want to talk you through now in the next few slides over some approaches of innovation. And that one approach of innovation that we use, which is also part of a book that I want to show you later, it's called the double loop. So the double loop, it's one of the approaches how you can do innovation. It all starts in the center with a point of view. So whoever has anything coming up your mind, you always have a point of view, but it's worth actually to understand more. So with that idea that you have, you might want to understand more. What is it that competition does? Maybe also if you're already a running company. So what does actually your current business model look like? So understanding more about your current business model, looking into strengths and weaknesses of that business model, understanding what I said before, context, but also understanding the customer needs, doing some research about the customer needs. And based on that understanding, next you can go one step further in the ideation phase. So creating options. And that connects again back to what I said before with Karl Lagerfeld, the fashion designer. Creating like a whole bunch of options, not that single right solution only. It's really about creating many, many, many different options. And at some point, you will have an enhanced point of view. But then with all those options that you created, let's prototype something. So let's prototype these options. And then of course, based on the prototyping, let's validate that. And that's so important that you create like a whole bunch of different options, validate those different options with people, get their feedback, and then you will actually be able to pivot or persevere. So some of these options you might drop them, but maybe there's one or two options that actually are pretty good, that seem pretty promising, but maybe there's slight tweaks that you need to do. So you might actually go back and you might go up into the upper loop again, do some more understanding, more ideation. So this double loop, it's not that you go through that loop just linearly. You might have like some iterations in the upper loop, doing some more understanding, ideation, understand more, ideate. Or sometimes you do the prototyping, validation, and you go back again in the upper loop. And it's really about, it's not like a linear process. It's definitely iterative. And that's, of course, what connects again back to design thinking. And also today, I want to show you one of our tools, the business model canvas. But in the end, in terms of design thinking, it's really about creating or like looking into new tools, have those new skills available, and also then learning about a new mindset. And if you're interested to also learn a bit more about it, there's the book, Design a Better Business. Has anyone before heard of this book or maybe of the first book, The Business Model Generation? Anyone?
Yeah, a lot.
Okay, perfect. Also about the yellow book, The Design of a Better Business?
No, I haven't heard of that one, but I have the other one and Value Proposition Canvas as well. I think I got them memorized back to front and inside out. I'm a big fan.
So yeah, and that yellow book, that's of the company Business Models Inc. And let's say the business model generation, that's more like the whole understanding about what is business modeling, what are the components of a business model. The Design of a Business book, that's more like a collection of all the different canvases that you can actually use in the double loop process of innovation. So like for all those different process steps, there's like a collection of canvases and also like practical frameworks. So if you're interested in using it, you can find it on Amazon. And also there's the website designabetterbusiness.com. I can share that link later also. On that website, designabetterbusiness.com, you can download all the different canvases, and also there's like explanations how to use the tools, like step-by-step explanations. So it's a pretty neat website and with definitely very, very helpful tools. Okay, so now I would like to show you a bit in more depth the business model canvas. I assume you, is it Adam? You had the book, right?
Yes,
so,
yes, I do. Sorry, I'm just unmuting. We actually had Oswald come to SDU a few months back and gave a talk with some of the ideas. But the reason why I love it is, I don't know, now 20 years ago or something, I set up a company in the UK and didn't have a clue about business models. And then when I started teaching business studies and business model canvas came out, I was like, this would have saved about a year of my life.
Okay. So you're even teaching it?
Yeah, I've used it in some classes and stuff like that. So,
perfect.
I'm a big fan. And some of my students are on the course, so they should definitely get this book to save a year of their lives as well.
Now, let me share later on. I will share some links and helpful things about what I'm also talking here in the presentation. So I don't know if like anyone in the call has seen or used the business model canvas before, but yeah, let's just still like make it a bit more interactive. Not only I do the whole talk. So as I said before, the business model canvas, it can be used in the understand phase, but also it's pretty helpful in the ideate phase. So if you have an idea, create different versions. Take like the business model canvas, but create version 1, 2, 3, and then create those different versions for the business model canvas that you have a better look and feel. Okay, maybe this first business model, maybe that's the more relevant one that I want to pursue in the soon enough future. But maybe in the later future, I want to also pursue an option 2 or 3. So the business model canvas, it's also pretty neat in terms of ideation. But first of all, okay, what is a business model? So when we were looking into the whole notion of business modeling as a company, well, if you Google it, you might find that guy. Is that a business model? Or maybe is she a business model? Well, in the end, for us, when we use the notion of business model, it's about creating something like establishing a common language to discuss business. So for us, a business model, how we would define it, it's the rationale of how an organization creates, delivers, and captures value. And for that reason, of course, it's pretty helpful to use the business model canvas as a great tool, as an overview, not like a detailed business plan, but as a great overview, like how the whole ecosystem of your business actually looks like, and also how the different blocks connect to each other. So now I do want to present you those different blocks, the 9 building blocks of the business model canvas. So it all starts on the very right-hand side of the business model canvas. It starts with the customer. What is it that the customer wants, of course? And you can actually separate the customer segments into 3 different sub-segments. So customers are actually those who buy the product, but also then those who make a decision to buy the product, which might be their bosses. And then also, of course, those people who use the product. So it's always about the buyer, the user, and the decision maker, which could be, sometimes it's one person, but sometimes it's 3 different entities. Then the next block, of course, it's the value proposition. So what is it that you actually produce for your customer? And the value proposition, It can be a product or a service. But also, it's not only the product or service, it's also the promise that comes along with the product. So keep in mind, it's product and service plus the promise. Then third box to present, it's the channels. So how do you actually bring your product or your service to the customer? It could be through the web or through a mobile application, but also it could be sold in stores. So all those different options, and there's quite a bunch of options for the channels to keep those in mind. Then the next box, it's the customer relationship. Just as a quick example for the customer relationships, and I think it's always a good one to mention that, customer relationship, it's really not about like a feedback channel or like a complaint line that you have. So whenever something goes wrong, your people can complain to you. That's not about creating a good customer relationship. Customer relationship is really about engaging with your customer to help you actually make your products better, but also to get like a great positive feedback. And also, of course, in the end, it's really about keeping your customers loyal. So just some examples for customer relationships. It's what airlines do with their miles programs. So like their mile redeemage programs. And there's so many different examples for that. But also maybe supermarkets look into that. Also here in the US, a lot of companies, in a lot of supermarkets or all kind of companies, they also give people credit cards. So whenever you use the credit card in that store, you get even more benefits. You can collect miles that you can redeem later or points. So these kind of things, those are the things that actually keep customers loyal, that buy your products again and again, which of course are good examples for customer relationships. And then bottom line of the business model canvas on the right side, it's the revenue streams. So all these different options for revenue streams, which could be subscriptions, but also which could be the unit sales or any kind of licensing models. So there's also quite a bunch of different revenue streams available. But all of those, it's really about how you make money, how do you monetize with your products. Then let's come to the left side of the business model canvas, the key resources. So these are all the things that you actually own, which could be a plan, which could be maybe intellectual property rights, but also your people can be key resources, your staff, your skilled staff. Then key activities, those are the things you do, the verbs. So this could be marketing, research, development. Maybe it could also be vetting of your products. All those different things that you do that are actually contributing for you creating the value proposition. Then on the very left-hand side of the business model canvas, there's the key partners. Key partners, those are really the partners that help you build the value proposition. And key partners really means those are maybe like those companies that you have that you share IPR rights with. Maybe also those are the companies that you have mutual agreements that help you something that you cannot do on your own. But any kind of tiny little supplier would not be considered as a key partner. So in the key partner section, only mention those partners that are really key, contributing to you provide the value proposition. And then bottom line of the left-hand side of the business model canvas, it's the cost structure. And so also in the cost structure, I would not say put like everything in there. Look into like the main cost buckets, which could be maybe marketing, if that's a huge part of your costs. Most probably it's also the people that are your payroll, but maybe also you have a lot of like a really high amount of license fees that you pay to some partners. So only put up a few in there, like the main elements of your cost structure. So that is a quick recap of the business model canvas. And now let's look into an example, the Nespresso example, where it's all about the pods. So yeah, I encourage you actually, everyone unmute your camera so we can also make it at least a bit interactive. And I will ask you questions, and then hopefully you come back with the right answer. Let's start with the business model canvas for Nespresso right in the middle. What's the value, or anyone knows Nespresso, I assume. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Okay. So what's the value proposition of Nespresso? What would you say? What is it that Nespresso does for their clients?
It gives you almost good quality coffee, but at home? Is it like the Starbucks experience without the Starbucks?
Exactly. So, and I like that because you said the word quality. So, of course, it's not like the high end quality coffee that you might get in a great Italian from a great Italian barista, but still, it's pretty decent quality coffee, and also it's reproducible, so it always tastes the same. So
consistent.
It's consistent, good quality coffee. And you said another one coming to the customer segments actually. You also said at home. So yes, there is the segment at home. So people consume coffee at home, but also a second customer segment that is actually people at work. So Nespresso, if you have like a high level differentiation of their customer segments, you can say people at home and people at work. And for that reason, they have two different lines of coffee. So they have the machines for people at home with the small pots, but then the machines for businesses, they look different. So it's more like those flatter pots, for the reason that when Nespresso actually, when they started, businesses complained that towards the end of the week, they always run out of pots. So people, they just took the pots from their offices back home. And that's why the businesses asked Nespresso, can you actually redesign the pots or the machines that actually people do not steal the pots anymore? So for that reason, like a very high level differentiation, let's say it's people at home, people at work. Those are the two high level customer segments of Nespresso. So then the next one, channels. You can get Nespresso over the phone. You can also order it online. You can go to the flagship stores like the Apple stores for coffee. Question: where can you not get Nespresso coffee?
I don't think you can get it at the supermarkets, like convenience store.
That's correct. So there's now like some supermarkets, they sell also like cheaper pots. There is some, but initially, originally Nespresso started in supermarkets also. And they found out, well, we do not sell pretty well. Then they made a big pivot and said, how can we actually create maybe like brand exclusiveness, create that brand perception for Nespresso, make it like really high quality, more exclusive. So they took the pots out of the supermarket, which was a very interesting move, because by that move out of the supermarkets and creating those flagship stores, they created the brand perception, make it like very exclusive. And from that point on, that was like really a great situation for them. Everyone wanted to have Nespresso pots. And for that reason, it was not available for the masses. So you needed to create, which also comes to the relationships, you needed to sign up for a club. With that,
I think it's the patents thing, that the release of the patent that made it available, or likes available in the supermarket right now. They held the patent exactly. For a few years, and now the patent got released, because I think you can only hold the patent for 20 years or so. And then the patent got released, and now third-party suppliers can produce the sizes that fit into the machines.
Yeah. And also we'll come to the patent in a bit, in the business model canvas even, but that's definitely correct. So like once the patent expired, that was of course a game changer. And also then again, Nespresso had to pivot and also had to look into like more innovative options for their business model. But let me come to that in a bit. So what they did is in terms of customer relationship, keeping the customers loyal, well, they established a club. With a club, they could actually mine all the data, knowing exactly what the people wanted. So revenue streams for Nespresso, well, there's basically two. Like a smaller one, it's the machines, where they get commissions from the machines producers. But the big revenue stream for Nespresso, it's that bait and hook model. So it's the pots. Those are the recurring revenue streams for them. So people go online, go back to the flagship stores and buy the Nespresso pots again and again. Now let's come to that. Key resources were also the patents in there. So key resources, of course, for Nespresso, initially it was the patent. But at that point, when the patent expired, well, Nespresso had to do things differently. They had to create more options that also I will talk about in a few. In addition, the key resources for Nespresso, well, it's of course the plant where they actually produce the coffee, where they put the coffee into the pots. And then key resource, it's also the Nespresso Club. That means all the data. So data is actually key for Nespresso. They know exactly what the people want. So they can even reach out to their customers whenever they have any new type of coffee. They can reach out. So last time we know that you like more of the coffee on the strong end. So now we have the new blend from Brazil. They can actually do like the marketing accordingly to the data, accordingly to customer behavior. Key activities. What would you say are key activities of Nespresso? What is it that they do mostly?
They inspire with new flavors, maybe.
Yeah, so it is definitely like doing research, looking for, it's not even on there, it's looking for new flavors and also producing that. But then producing that, of course, it's back again to the whole production line of the coffee, which you see with that plant icon. And also one of the huge key activities of Nespresso, which also, of course, comes to why they created that exclusive brand perception. So that was that guy on the billboard, George Clooney. I mean, he was at some point, he was all around. You could see him anywhere, on television, in cinemas, anywhere with that slogan, Nespresso, what else? So it was like pretty intrusive. You could see him anywhere. So Nespresso, they ran huge marketing campaigns. And that's why definitely I would mention key activities for Nespresso. Yes, it's like marketing advertising, which they did with like their figureheads, which at that time was George Clooney. And also another key activity of Nespresso, it's the entire supply chain. So bringing the coffee to the people. Let's come to the key partners in the Nespresso business model. Who would you say is a key partner in the business model?
Might be the coffee plants.
I say coffee plants, no.
Crops
and I give you an explanation in a second, but who is a key partner in the model?
Crops and Philips.
Exactly. So the machine producers, Krups, Philips, DeLonghi, all those, because in Nespresso, they have that specific type of pots. And so they asked machine producers who actually wants to produce machines for us that are exclusive with our pots. So they had like development and licensing agreements with these companies. And these companies exclusively produced for Nespresso to fit these pots into the machines. So that was shared. That was actually shared, and also then those companies they couldn't sell the machines, the Nespresso machines, to other suppliers for the reason that the pots just didn't fit, especially at that time when the patent was still existent. Now you can also use the machines, of course, with cheaper pots, but in the beginning, so that original business model, the machine producers, they were key partner of Nespresso. Now the explanation why the coffee growers or the plantations are not a key partner. So what Nespresso does is they normally, also there's some pivots recently, but normally all the different sleeves that you have of Nespresso pots, they do not show where the coffee is from. So they have their own names for the pots. They say it's a Ristretto, or it's a Roma, it's a Lungo. So they would actually not even dare to buy the coffee beans from another plantation. Let's assume like plantation A goes up with the price by 50% overnight. Well, then Nespresso simply goes to the next plantation and buys the beans there. But they don't care who the supplier is, as long as they can say, this is that melange, this is that blend of coffee from South America, from Guatemala, or this is that one from anywhere in Asia. But in the end, they do not show exactly that plantation where the coffee is from. So that for that reason, they can easily change the supplier. That's why I would not call the supplier, like the coffee growers, a key partner. Does that make sense? Okay, and then last one to talk through really quick, cost structure. So of course, what I said before, the whole marketing advertising with George Clooney, well, that guy is expensive. So definitely one of the key components of the cost structure. Then also the plantations are pretty expensive. The plants are pretty expensive. So that's also, of course, the whole production cycle, production costs need to be looked into. And then supply chain. Another element that you might also mention in the cost structure, it's the flagship stores. So also these are pretty expensive. And of course, also the people like working for Nespresso, they're also not mentioned here. But those are like 5 of the key elements for cost structure to mention. Coming back to the pattern of Nespresso. So at some point, it was April 1st, April 18 in 2010, that the patent actually of Nespresso expired. So at that point in time, other companies, competitors, they were ready. So they sold their coffee pots for like a fraction only of Nespresso pots. And for that reason, well, Nespresso, they also needed to be innovative. What they did is, well, they actually produced coffee for babies. So what I mean with that, they had the whole technology and also the idea of, you have a machine, you put into that machine, you just put a pot into that, and then press a button, easy coffee. They thought, well, with that technology, with that in mind, we could also do that, of course, enhanced by Nestle, one of the biggest food manufacturers in the world. They said, what if we just put like milk powder into pots, and then, of course, backed by Nestle, producing like the milk powder, but then with different companies that actually produce the machines, we just offer as an additional business line, like milk bottles for babies, which you can easily do. So you just put that pot in there, the milk pot, you fill the machine with water, press the button, and then an easy way to get like the milk formula for babies. And they can even adapt that for the different age of the baby. So 1 month or 3 to 6 months, 7 to 12 months. So a pretty simple solution, which is of course still like back to the notion of a machine and then a pot. But they said, okay, we can extend that. We have another line of business, not Nespresso anymore, but now it's, well, coffee for babies. Just like to be innovative and keep innovating. So for Nespresso, that is what they do. Thinking in options to not have that single right solution, but thinking like, okay, we have this idea. How can we also expand that idea? How can we actually extend our customer segments and actually just like do slight pivots and even acquire new customer segments with new ideas? Okay, before we now go into the business modeling, into your exercise, actually, I just want to give you like some of the ground rules for business modeling, just really quick. And some are actually also that you can even apply them today, like digitally, but some are also, of course, more to like whenever you use the business model canvas, when everything gets hopefully back to normal. So also in your daily life. So first rule, well, that of course, it's more whenever you would use the business model canvas, maybe with your teams digitally. So do not write directly on the canvas. Always use sticky notes. So don't write on the canvas because maybe you might erase something. So sticky note, write it on the sticky note, put it up then, and you can move around the sticky note. Sometimes you think it's a key partner, but at some point that key partner turns into a customer. So it's easy to move the sticky notes around. Do not write on the canvas directly. Also, when you do it with a team, don't like talk forever. Stop the blah blah. Really, everyone should take Post-its and a Sharpie, write it down on a sticky note, put it up the canvas, start a discussion, and if it's not valid, take it off again. Then the next thing is, well, you might ask yourself, where should I start with a business model canvas? I always recommend, well, start with two of the building blocks. Either you start in the customer segments or you start in the value propositions. So with one of the two, that's my recommendation to start. But there's like no golden bullet for start with value prop or start with the customer segments. In my mind, any of the two are actually valid to start with. Next rule, and that's very important, and also you can also use that today when you work on the business model canvas in the digital way of working. Never use bullet points on the sticky notes. So every idea should be written on a separate sticky note. And then also very important, avoid too much detail in the business model canvas. So first off, when you write on and that's again more for in real life, when you write on the sticky notes, write as big as possible. And also granularity is really important. So avoid a lot of detail on the business model canvas. Don't make it look like that. Actually, no one would even get, what do you want to say with that? What is it? What are the main key things that you want to express with that business model canvas? It should look something like that. So a few customer segments, more on the higher level, and then what's the value propositions per customer segment. And still, let's assume like that yellow customer segment has the yellow value proposition. Do it first on a higher level, and then if you want to drill that down to a more granular level, take another business model canvas and then look into the details. But I would always encourage people, do it more on the higher level first, having all the different customer segments there, and then do the deep dives for the individual customer segments. And also, which you've seen already in a slide before, use color coding to relate certain building blocks to one another. So here, as you see, it's like that. We always call that the golden triangle. So what is it that customer segment, the yellow customer segment actually gets in terms of value proposition? And then also, what is it that this yellow customer segment would pay for that, that value proposition? And the same for the green one, and the same for the pink one. So use that, use this like golden triangle, use color coding in terms of really highlighting what value proposition belongs to what customer, and also what's the respective revenue stream for that. Okay, so with all that in mind, any questions so far? Anything unclear? No? Okay, so now let's say you have that canvas that I gave you, and I want to show you really quick how to use it. So when you are in that canvas, I will give you a topic in a minute, but then when you're in that canvas, you have 3 types of sticky notes. Just pull them down, and then you can write whatever you want to write in here. It even adapts, so the text. Pull those down, and you have like a lot of sticky notes here, so you can pull all those down, write it, and then of course, as I said, write the value proposition for this customer segment, and also what's that revenue stream. And if you have another customer segment, use another color, and also do it the same way. Write it down, work on that. And I would like everyone of you to work with the business model canvas. We might not have 20 minutes anymore, but we can even do it in 10 minutes. And let's make an easy example. Let's actually use the example of, what do you think about using Uber? Let's do the Uber business model. Everyone knows Uber, I assume, right? Perfect. So let's make 10 minutes. It's really quick, and also it's an easy one. So everyone, 10 minutes, do the Uber business model. And then after that, I want to have 2 really quick share outs of that business model. And also I show also the ideal Uber business model, how I would actually design it. Okay? So let's go. Let's start. Everyone works on your own Uber business model. Let's go.
Just one question. I guess it makes sense to write about the classic business, not the self-driving Ubers.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's a good one. Thanks, Nikki. And also, if you finished earlier, just raise your hand and we can start early, actually.
It's a little tricky because Uber was banned in Denmark. So I know there's all kinds of weird extra things like Uber Eats and stuff like that, but I'm not entirely sure I'm familiar with all of the little bits and bobs.
It's also fine because I will do it. We will do it very simple. Just do the common ride sharing business model of Uber.
Okay.
Okay, 3 more minutes.
It's very funny to do that if you have never driven with Uber.
Okay, go on. Interesting to see your model later. Okay, last minute.
I don't know if that works, but actually I think that everyone can share their screen. So we see all the, let me try that first. I think everyone can share the screens now. So if I replace this with me, is that right? I think other people can share their screens now as well. Is that right?
Yeah. So Nikki, you wanna start?
I didn't mean to start, but I think everyone can share their screen, but I'm not sure if that works simultaneously. But it should actually work.
Let's find out.
But,
find out. Who wants to go first? Maybe not Nikki.
I can go. I can give it a try.
Yes, go for it. Share the screen.
Okay, here we go.
And you said there. Yeah. It's so. I assume you're in Germany, Dieter.
Austria.
Austria. Okay. And there's also banned. Okay. I just knew it from Germany that they also banned Uber. But okay. Good. Then let's look into Dieter's business model for Uber.
Okay. I started with the customer segment, and I declared it like individuals using Uber.
Can you share it?
Because I'm still seeing Nikki's screen. Yeah. Maybe.
Can you try to share it? I think everyone can share it. I clicked. Everyone can share screens.
I share it. I can stop it again.
Maybe Nikki, you have to stop first. I don't know. Maybe.
All right.
Okay.
Share it again.
Yeah.
Can you see that?
Perfect.
Yeah. Well, now I cannot see the customer. Yeah, I started with the customer segment. I would say it's individuals or groups using Uber. I can assume that there's also drivers kind of pay for being part of the Uber network.
Yes.
And so they are customers and potential partners. Like, well, I thought of helicopter ride, but Uber Eats. I'm living in the small villages where there's no Uber. You can walk easily.
Oh, it's fine. That's fine. That's good.
In terms of value proposition, it's the easiest way to call it form of transportation for a customer, because I think you do it just via an app, where you also do the payment over it. So also the whole customer relationship is going via this app, and there's a lot of data in there, and I think they must have something underneath how they distribute the people who is where and who's going where.
Yeah, the algorithms basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the channels, I think, is just an app and a kind of internal app, how I called it.
Yeah.
Revenue streams are, well, first and foremost, the people using Uber, the drivers, and maybe partners. Key activities, I think it's marketing. Key resource, well, I have the drivers on, but I think they're really replaceable, so I would take them off. But the key resource is the app with all the data. Key partners, I would say, are the programmers and this algorithm, who is where and who's going where. And cost structure is marketing and accounting, because I think there's a lot of things going over that. So there's a lot of thoughts in there.
Okay, perfect. Maybe because I see that we are running out of time, and also want to give you some questions. Let me go back to my screen sharing, and I have to admit, Dieter, your business model was actually pretty perfect. So that was really good. It was really great.
Thank you.
So in the end, if 1 second. Okay, so now you see again my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So in the end, as you lined it out here, Dieter, start with the customer segments. It's the rider who gets a ride. Then the other customer segment, it's the driver. And for the drivers, they actually have an additional income opportunity. And what I like that you also had the partners in here, which might be helicopter companies, but also other partners. And then, of course, for the partners, the question is maybe for them, the value proposition for the partners, they can place ads, or also they can make additional money. So whenever you have any customer segment, make sure that for each customer segment, you also have a value proposition. Then in terms of the money from the riders, so Uber get paid from the riders with a credit card. So simply like the whole through the app also, so like the whole online payment. And the drivers, well, they get commissions of the rides that they give to the people. You also had to correct the app. So it's a mobile app for both the riders and drivers, but there's also then the internal API for Uber. So also that was correct. Customer relationships, it's all about the rating. So you as a rider, you actually rate the driver, but also the drivers, they rate you as a rider. And really quick, key resources, that's actually what you also said in terms of the algorithms. So it's the data and the algorithms that Uber has. So they know whether people commute from A to B. They also know the commuting behavior. So that gets actually back again to what we said before with Nespresso. It's all about the data, mining the data and knowing the preferences of people. What Uber does, it's the data analysis. That's of course, so they analyze their data, and also they also do like the whole mapping and all these kind. So they're a data company. So Uber, it's not like an automotive or a driving company. They're definitely a data company. They're a tech company. That's also how they sell themselves. And last element I want to mention, it's the cost structure. So what Uber does pay for, it's for the app development. So maintaining the app, but also like programming the app, coming up with new releases of the app. But the one thing that also differentiates Uber from a traditional taxi company, they do not own any assets in terms of cars. They also do not. They also not have the taxi drivers on the payroll. So the only thing that they really have to pay, it's actually the app. It's the technology, and in addition, of course, well, they pay commissions to the drivers, but they do not have them on the payroll as fixed assets. So that for the Uber business model. Since we're almost at the end of the session, let's wrap it up really quick. So today I gave you like a short introduction into business modeling, and also into the double loop. So with those 4 different phases: understand, ideate, prototype, and validate. And then also I gave you like some of the tools, skills, mindset. Most importantly, the business model canvas. So those 9 building blocks. For some, it was only a recap. Maybe for some, there were also some new aspects in there. And so I encourage you, use the business model canvas. It's a pretty good tool whenever you have an idea also in your business to line that out. How does it all interconnect, from customer segments to value propositions to actually how you make money with that, to the channels, key resources, activities, et cetera, et cetera. And there's a lot of more different tools that you can find, which are all part of that book, the Design a Better Business book. And as I said, I will provide you, Nikki, I will provide you like a short summary of that presentation. And also I put the link for the Design a Better Business into that presentation. So yeah, now we're at the end of this session today. So I want to open up the discussion. Do you have any questions?